All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Richter. I'm the Training and Compliance Specialist here at the Medina County Board of DD, and today I'm joined by Christie Kimbler, who is our Assistant Director of Children's Services, and she's going to be presenting on toilet training for children with developmental differences. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's presentation is being recorded and will be available to watch on the MCBDD YouTube page probably later this week. So an email is going to be sent out to all of the attendees with a link to watch a recording of the training, as well as materials that she's referencing today. And there will be a survey, and you should get that later this week. If you're joining us in person today and you'd like to ask questions, I gave you some Post-it notes, so just go ahead and jot those down, and I can give those to Christy at the end. And if you're joining us virtually today, you can go ahead and use the chat to ask us any questions, and I'll make sure we get those answered at the end of today's presentation. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Christy.
Hello, I'm Christie Kimbler, Assistant Director of Children's Services here at Windfall. And I have done toilet training for a really long time. I used to be a behavior therapist for the Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and one of our big topics was toilet training. So if you would save your questions to the end, and because I might touch on it. And this is also, just keep in mind, this is also kind of like a basic. There's lots of things that we can dive into, specific instances when somebody's getting stuck, and you can put those in the chat and or even email me and we can talk about those more, okay? All right, so one of my favorite topics, potty training. Okay, let's see. Okay, what are we going to learn today? We are going to learn the signs that your child or slash individual is ready to start toilet training, how to set up toilet training routine for success, the difference between being toilet conditioned and toilet trained, and then using visuals and reinforcements. And then once you have, use the visual and reinforcements, how do you fade it? Because you don't always want to have to use a reinforcer because it's a daily function we all do. Okay, so where do we start? When you think about toilet training someone, you really start with medically. We have lots of our kiddos and young adults who take Marilax, right? And their poops are not formed all the time. And so it's really, really hard to start somebody on a sitting routine or expect them to go to the restroom when they really don't have control of their bowels. And that's a real common one because, like I said, a lot of our kiddos, especially kiddos with autism, really do struggle with that because of their diet. So really think about the medical stuff, okay? The other thing is awareness. Are they aware that they're wet, that they're dry? Do they care? Do they care at all? Because some don't. And can they control it? So are they staying dry for like 4 to 5 hours? Um, are they able to stay dry overnight? Like when they wake up, is their diaper dry? Um, and do they have an interest? So do they come to you when they're wet and want their diaper taken off? When they poop, do they take their pants off? Do they go and hide when they poop? So all of those things are indicators that they're ready. It doesn't mean if they're not doing those things, you can't start a sitting routine because some kids you have to teach them wet and dry. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so when do you start? How many of you think, okay, it's Christmas break, we're home, we're going to start, right? Or it's spring break, we're home, we're going to start. Don't do it. You want it to be a calm time in your life. And so the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, Easter break, all of those are exciting times and they're different. They're not consistent. And that's really hard for kids. Plus, it's also hard for the adults to be consistent because you're doing a zillion different things too. So it's really important to pick kind of like a really calm time for everybody. It's kind of counterintuitive, us as adults, we take our time and want it right then. Um, so you have to have the time. It's also a time when you can stay home. So we'll talk about the kind of three different approaches to potty training, and there's many more. Um, but when are you available to really stay home and be consistent and pay attention? Um, and then I think that's it. Yep. Okay. There are so many different approaches, and there's not a right one and there's not a wrong one. It's what is matching that student or individual. That's all it is. Um, so there's potty training boot camp, which is you take a weekend or you take 3 days and you send everybody else in your house away and you are just going to do that. So a lot of people take them down to just their underwear. A lot of people have them just go free. Sometimes that works. If they're really ready, that works. But for a lot of our kids, it doesn't work. For more typical kids, it does work because it clicks quicker. But for kids with developmental differences, it doesn't always work that well. Does that make sense? But I will tell you a story later that when you try all these other slow and steady sitting routines and they want to do it, but it's a choice that they're choosing not to, that's a whole different situation. Um, Slow and steady sitting routines are what make them understand what's happening because you're doing it consistently, you're doing it calmly, and the rules aren't changing. Okay. Um, so there is approach, and believe it or not, it's a book somebody wrote. Actually, I know who wrote it, and they just let the kids pee wherever they want. So they take the little potty in front of the TV. They take the little potty, beside their bed. Um, I'm not going to say it doesn't work. It just is. Then you have to break that habit and still transition into the bathroom, right? So they're not going to be super old and be peeing in front of the potty with an iPad. I mean, that's just not reasonable, right? So, like, behaviorally, I like to introduce things that I don't have to fade and break another problem or transition, so to speak. So, that's why I say that's not my favorite, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Okay, so sitting for success. Track data for 2 weeks. And the next slide is we'll talk about how to do that. Analyze the data and then start with 5 times a day to sit. And we'll talk about what would be good 5 times for them to sit. Okay. Okay. So, wow, that was a lot of stuff. But what you want to do is you really want to find a pattern, and that's why you do it for 2 weeks, because 2 weeks is kind of validity of trying something and tracking and getting like baseline data. So you want 2 weeks, you track their food intake, their liquid intake, and then when you change them, if they're wet, dry, or soiled. So you can see patterns like, okay, every day they have a BM at 5 p.m. So guess what? You're going to sit them at 5 p.m. Or every morning they're dry, but after they drink something, they're wet 30 minutes later. So it gives you a lot of detail about how their bowels are moving or not moving, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, wow, like the parents didn't realize that, wow, they really were staying dry for a long period of time. Um, or they don't digest as quickly. And so they don't go as quickly, or they digest really quickly. So you can't really say, okay, this time for everybody, because everybody's digestion is different. So the days are up here, and then you just track and you just use the key. Okay. And then you analyze the data. Okay. So that 2 weeks, like that's a long 2 weeks. If you're ready to potty train, you're like, oh, wow, 2 weeks, we're still waiting for this. That's not fun. Um, so if you think about, especially if it's a younger child, or even if it's not a younger child, if it's somebody in their teens, or when you change them, especially younger kids, you probably don't change them in the bathroom. So they associate the bathroom with taking a bath, brushing their teeth and washing their hands. They have no clue that what they're doing needs to go into the toilet, right? So while you're doing that, make sure that you change them in the bathroom. Okay, so you're associating that soiled diaper and that wet diaper with the bathroom. Okay. The other thing is think about when you are an infant, when your kids are infants. Um, what is changing time? Changing time is a super social time. It's a super right in their face, talking to them, cooing, going back and forth, a lot of eye contact, right? So sometimes they seek that, and it's not cognitively on purpose, but they're seeking that attention and like that routine of being with you during changing time, okay? So we're going to make that neutral, okay? It's not going to be unkind, it's just going to be matter of fact. The other thing that you should do is they should be standing up to change, right? So you don't have them lying down and looking at you and all that back and forth. So it is just you're in the bathroom, you do your business, and then we're just all done. So you're not really making a big deal out of it. It's just something that has to happen. Um, and yes, you can change a poopy diaper standing up. And actually, I think it's easier, honestly. Even kids who maybe are unstable, you can get a bar for them to hold on to. You can have the counter for them to hold on to. Again, just getting them to understand and associate the bathroom function with the bathroom itself. Um, and while doing that, also, if they poop and it's solid enough, put it in the toilet and have them flush it. Okay? Try not to let them flush it when there's nothing in it, because then that will set up the routine of every time I go in the bathroom, I just watch it. And then that's something else you have to break, right? And try to figure out. The other thing to do as well is if you don't think that they recognize if they're wet or dry, when you're changing them, you say, "Oh, you're wet. Feel the diaper, like the inside or outside. You're wet." And when they're dry, you're dry. So you're teaching them those prerequisite words and understanding those words for later on when you say, "Are you wet or are you dry?" And you may not ever say that. There is a time, with some kids who may not really understand that or answer you, and that's okay, but you're teaching them what wet is and what dry is, okay? So you do all of that before you can do all of that while you're collecting the data because you're not expecting them to do anything. You're just kind of priming them and having them that association with the bowel movements and the bathroom. Okay. All right. What comes first? This is Nicole's favorite slide. Um, I tried to find things that would like get your guys' attention. Um, Pee or poop, to be quite honest, it's about 50-50. It depends on your child. Um, if a child has a ton of sensory issues and they don't want the poop on them, that's the first thing that comes. On the flip side of that, sometimes they have sensory issues and the poop is the last thing to come because they like the comfort of the diaper. And sitting on that toilet with all the air hitting them, that's very discomfort for them. So it really just depends on the child, I'll be quite honest with you. Um, Boys, usually the pee comes easier, just in my experience. And a lot of boys struggle more with the poop. And I think it's because I'm going to tell you, I suggest that you have the boys sit and not stand up because you are priming them and training them for pooping. And so that's why you do sit them. Because if they're always standing up peeing, they may not understand, oh, now I have to sit. Like it's easier to transition for, oh, I'm learning that I pee sitting down. It's easier to transition from that to standing than it is to try to teach them to sit and poop. But does it make sense? Okay, So that's pee and poop. Okay, so you think, what do you mean prepare the bathroom? They just go in and go, right? No. So use the regular toilet. Potty chairs, they're fine, but again, you're gonna have to transition them to the toilet at some time anyway. So you might as well start with the toilet. Um, so make sure they're, well, first of all, okay, everybody, even the people at home, raise your feet off the ground. Okay, sitting, raise your feet off the ground. Now try to pee. So it's a weird sensation, right? And so we ask kids to do this all the time, and especially kids with developmental differences. They may be unsteady. They may be gravitationally insecure. You don't know, and so we really want their bodies positioned squarely, and they feel secure, so they can let their bowels go. Um, all right. Choose a seat. We will get back to that on next slide. Sensory. So there's sensory um, components. Maybe they don't like the way the toilet feels. Maybe they, again, gravitational insecurity. They don't know where their body is in space, so they're not quite sure how to get on that toilet. The motor planning of getting on a toilet. The other thing is also the air. So they're very comfortable in the diaper. A diaper is it's a different sensation. It keeps you warm. You feel the warmth on you when you pee. And some individuals and kids like that. And so when you take that away and all the air, they're like, oh goodness, I don't know. And again, it's not cognitively, they're not doing it. Their body is just reacting to it. All right, so now we're going to talk about potty seats. Okay, so is this a pointer, Zach? Aha. Okay, this one is foam, and it just inserts. As you can see, they have to be pretty gravitationally secure because there's not handles on it, right? This one I love because there's handles. And then you just put a stool under their feet. Okay, so that one I really like. This one's pretty cool too if they don't have any issues because it just mimics a toilet. So again, you're not going to have to transition them from this to a hard surface because it's there. Um, this one I love because it's built in the steps, and see their knees and ankles are at 90. So, and they're holding on. So it's very secure. Okay. It looks good. And for older students and individuals, this is really nice because especially if they have physical needs, it just moves back and forth over the toilet, which is very, very nice as well. Uh-oh, Zach. Okay. All right. So we have all that. Now we're going to set up a sitting routine. Okay. So things you'll need to set up. You need a timer for sure. You need books. And you need books about toilet training. Okay. You need books about toilet training. You can sing songs and visuals. So in your packet, but also online, there are visuals that you can click on. So you want to set up a visual schedule for them so they know what to do. Okay. And I am going to show you. So in the beginning, you are going to say, you're going to be with them and you're going to say, you're going to point, and you can put this on the wall. I usually Velcro it on the wall. And you point, you say, pants down, and you can help them down or if they can do it. And then you say, sit, help them on, pants up, flush toilet, wash hands. Once they've got it and you know they have it, drop the verbal, okay? So what we want eventually is independence. Well, if you're always verbally prompting them, they're going to need you there or a person there, right? And so we want to fade that verbal prompt. Lots of people think that verbal prompts aren't very intrusive. Verbal prompts are super intrusive. The only one that's more intrusive than that is the physical moving somebody because it takes a person. So then you drop the verbal and you just start pointing and see if they will do it. Okay. And then once they start doing that, then you can kind of back off and see if they can follow it on their own. Okay. And again, I make it sound really simple. You may have to do the verbal for a month and the pointing for 2 months. It's not that cut and dry. But the purpose is just in your brain, I'm always thinking about how can I fade it? Because again, you don't always want to have a reinforcer or a person there. So I always think about how, when I introduce it in my head, how am I fading this? Okay, so there's that one. All right, so when you get them seated, let me see. Okay, so once you get them seated, set the timer for 5 minutes. Um, and if they go, great. And if they don't go, that's okay too. It really is okay. So in the beginning, if you have someone who um, doesn't like to sit at all, um, and you're just establishing the routine, you would use a first then, okay? So after they've done all the visuals of pulling down and sitting, then you start with the first then. First sit, and then whatever your reinforcer is. And we'll talk about that in a few slides, reinforcers. Um, so it's just simply this and this. If they do it, fantastic, great, you have a party. If they don't do it, you don't make a big deal. Okay, we'll try again. No big deal. Okay. So, but you can do a couple of things. You can sing a couple of songs if they like songs they like, sing them twice or sing them 3 times, and then you're all done. Or the timer, either or. Okay. If they The rule of thumb with the timer is if they can't sit for 5 minutes, kind of time how long they can sit. So say they get up after 4 minutes. The next time, set your timer for 3 minutes so they're successful. Once they've mastered 3 minutes, you go to 4 minutes, and then you build your time up, if that makes sense. Because we always want to start below where they are because you want them to get that reinforcer, because you want them to have success. Because let's just be honest, if we never got a reinforcer, we'd give up, right? So you have to kind of have set it up so they can get the reinforcer when you first start. Okay, so power struggles. Do not make them sit on that toilet. You will lose, I promise. Um, so as humans, we can control 3 things. And if you really, really think about it, you'll understand. Nobody can make you talk. Nobody can make you eat. They can put food in your mouth, but nobody can make you swallow. And nobody can make you pee or poop. So, power struggles around those 3 things, I heed great warnings because you're going to engage in that power struggle and they will win. I had a little girl. She wasn't that little. I think she was 10, 9 or 10. And she had gotten into a power struggle over the poop with her mom. And she would go anywhere from, like, I think it was like 5 to 12. I think the longest she went was 12 days without pooping. And she would be in the corner just holding her legs and screaming at the top of her lungs. And this became her tension with mom. So it was caught up in this really interesting dynamic between she and mom in this power struggle. And it took us about 2 or 3 months to undo it. We did undo it, but it took us a while to undo it. And then, you get into the giving the Marilax and all of this stuff, and then that's a whole nother thing you don't want to happen. Also, if kids hold it, so say that there's a child who you put them on the toilet and they're not ready, and as soon as you put the diaper on, they pee, and they've held it the whole time. You can create UTIs, you can create bladder infections, and you don't want that either. So they'll tell you if they're ready. And then there'll be a part that we talk about, when do you back off? And it's okay to back off. It is 100% okay to back off if you need to and start again. Okay? So no power struggles. That's my story. Okay. So what's a reinforcer? Okay. I am not a tangible reinforcer person. However, for potty training, I'm all about it. It works. Um, and tangible means, for you, those of you who do not know, tangible means that it's something that they hold, that they get, and a lot of it's food. I very rarely use food, but it works well because you're reinforcing them so many times a day that it's a lot. So if you notice, Smarties, they get one Smartie for every time they sit, right? So if they're sitting 5 times a day, that's 5 Smarties. One goldfish, right? So I had a family that I was working with, and they chose M&Ms. Well, she gave her a whole pack of M&Ms each time. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, one. So, and mini cookies are awesome. Whoa, sorry about that. Mini cookies are awesome. Another good thing is um, fruit snacks. Those are really good too. So anything they like, a chip, um, anything that's reinforcing. Okay, so here's the caveat with it. Yes, it has to be motivating. It has to be immediate. It has to happen. Remember, first then that timer goes off, they're getting it, right? Okay, here's the other thing. They cannot get it any other time of day, right? So if you love Oreos, but you're going to have them for dessert or you're going to have them with your lunch, then why in the world would you do it to sit down, right? So sometimes I have parents who want to use the iPad, and I'm like, oh, they're like, that's the most motivating thing they have. And I'm like, okay, well, are you willing for them only to have it for 3 minutes after they pee? And they're like, well, no, well, we use it for this. I'm like, then you can't use it as a reinforcer. So it really does have to be reinforced and saved for that time only. Okay. Fading reinforcers. So you also want it to be something pretty easy to fade. Um, so let's see here. So once you go from sitting, so your first thing is going to be sitting. Okay, you're going to reinforce them for sitting. Okay, then they start peeing, right? You're going to reinforce them for peeing. You're going to stop. You're not going to reinforce them for sitting anymore. And it's just like, oh, you didn't have to go. We'll try again later. No big deal. And then you try again, okay? The next after that is that, and I probably would start with three times, and then you get the reinforcer. And the reinforcer might be a little bigger, like a treasure chest that has a lot of dollar store stuff on it or something like that, okay? So that is the progression of how you fade the reinforcer. And here's another one that I did with someone, and you can't see it now, but we put like, he had a train, and we put like little stickers when he would get reinforced, so it was super intermittent. And that's the strongest reinforcer, is you kind of don't know when it's coming or how many times. But this is for obviously somebody who can understand it, and to fade it. Okay. And some people may not get here, and that's okay, right, if they're going. Okay, so let's back up a little bit and talk about, when do you sit them? Okay. So rule of thumb is right when they get up. Usually about 20 minutes to 45 minutes after they've eaten something or drank something. So that would be breakfast, lunch, and then dinner, and then usually at bedtime, right before bedtime. So there's your 5 times a day to start with. If they have started peeing every time that you sit them and they're dry, you know you're on a good schedule. if they pee every time, but they're peeing in between, you need to have one in between those times, okay? Um, the other thing that I also do, again, keeping in your head, okay, how do I not have to undo something? So every time you leave, have them go to the bathroom before you leave, like you would yourself, right? Um, when you are out in a store, take them to the bathroom in the store, because I've seen a lot of times that you only do it at home and they only associate it at home. So even before you start, like right before you start potty training, you should be taking them in the bathrooms with you, right? Um, because you want them to get comfortable in those bathrooms. And I know that the automatic flushers are loud, and so even preparing them, okay, I'm going to take the toilet paper, because I know everybody probably knows this trick, you put the toilet paper over the sensor and it won't flush on you. And so you can say to them, okay, you stand outside the stall, I'm going to take the toilet paper off. And then you're warning them, you're desensitizing them to that noise. I had a family that there is a collapsible little toilet seat that she kept in her purse, and she would put it um, when they went out to restaurants or to a store. So really do frequent the restrooms out in public, so you don't have to struggle with that um, further down the line. I had one family that our visit was going to different stores and going in the pub. um, and it worked. I mean, it took a little bit. It has to be intentional. Has to be intentional. You have to be patient, and you have to be calm and matter of fact. Um, okay. Okay. So your reinforcement schedule, we already talked about that a lot. Um, meet them where they are, right? If it's a struggle to have them walk into the bathroom, then they get reinforced for walking in the bathroom, right? If they struggle, they do all the things, they pull down their pants and they sit there for 1 minute, reinforce them. And then you can make it longer and longer and longer. Other thing is celebrate. You want it to be the biggest party in the world, right? So remember what I said in the very beginning of the presentation. Changing is very intimate when the kids are young. You want to take that into them going to the bathroom. Remember? So when you're changing, you're making that very neutral and a matter of fact. So when they're in the bathroom and they've gone, you want to celebrate it. You want to just celebrate it. Now, if they don't go, that's okay too, but it's more neutral, especially if they have been going to the bathroom. That's more neutral then, okay? All right. Accidents and regression. Again, they're going to have accidents. There's just no way around it. They are absolutely going to have accidents, and that's okay. And so you don't make a big deal of it. It's just real matter of fact. Uh-oh. You maybe remind them, pee goes in the potty, but it's just very matter of fact. And then you help them clean it up, okay? Now, there are some kids, students, children who pee on demand to make you mad. And again, that power struggle, that's real. So that's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for kids who get angry, who are potty training or not potty training, to go pee somewhere in a corner in the house, or to pee on a stuffed animal, or to pee on the bed because they're mad. That's just, it's normal behavior. I hate to say that because people freak out about that or are like, oh my goodness, they're peeing. But they're telling you something's not working for them, right? That's their indication something's not working for them. So you have to back up and take the anger out of it for you, which is really super hard. I mean, super, super hard. We had one little guy, and he had autism, and he was in a preschool, and he didn't want to come to school, so he would pee in the car seat. And so we made a plan with mom, bring extra clothes. And so we go out and and we're like, it's fine. Like, don't react to him. And he was verbal enough. He's like, I peed, go home. And we're like, it's fine, we got it. And so we opened the door, and I was there observing, and I said, just take him. I said, just pick him up and take him. And so they did. They just picked him up and took him right to the bathroom and said, all right, let's change your clothes. About 3 days of that, he was done. um, so again, it's all how you respond. Now, there's also like a simple regression. So sometimes you'll be like, oh my gosh, they did it for 2 weeks. I don't know what happened. And then they won't do it. Back off. They're not ready. You just need to back off. And then the next time it usually comes. Another story, I had a little girl. We tried to potty train her at 4 or 5, and mom wasn't ready, and she wasn't ready either. And they got into this huge power struggle, and mom was frustrated, and she was frustrated. And I think mom was doing it because everybody would say she had autism, but she was really verbal. And so and she was tall. People would say, oh, she's in diapers. And so I think mom got guilted into wanting to potty train a little bit. And so I finally looked at her one day and I said, you know what? We don't have to do this. Like, I'm not judging you. It is on her time. It is on your time. Let's just take a break. When you're ready, we'll do it. And she said, okay. A couple of years later, she called me. She goes, I'm ready. And I said, okay. So we did do the boot camp with her. And it did work. It took 4 days. She sent her husband and the sibling, who was a brother, away. And she and I and Sophia, I'll never forget her name, um, we did it. And so she would call me. She called me one time in tears. She goes, oh my gosh. And I talked her through it. So you also need support, especially if they're a really hard person to train. Like, you need support. The mom who the daughter, held it and refused. You need support through it. So don't be afraid to ask somebody to help you. It's hard, it's frustrating, and I understand it, especially kids with developmental needs, for sure. Okay, so how many of you know what the word conditioned means? Yeah? Okay. So you can be conditioned before you're trained. And actually, most kids are conditioned before they're trained. And what that means is they depend on you as the adult to take them. So they stay dry in between, and then you take them, right? So that is conditioned. They can hold it. One of my really good friends, she had a daughter who was typical developing until she was 3. She even was talking and was potty trained. And unfortunately, she had a traumatic brain injury, and she was nonverbal. She didn't even sit up unsupported. And we got her conditioned. So she was able to stay dry in between, and wear underwear, but she depended on her mom to sit her. And now she's 18, and she's still conditioned, right? But she's never going to say to you, I need to go, or get up and take herself, okay? All right, so that's conditioned. And the reason we fade the verbal is to get trained, right? So we want them to say, I need to go to the bathroom. That's the very first thing. So, or the second thing. The first thing is to, when you sit them on the sitting schedule, they're going, right? So you want now for them to tell you when they have to go. Eventually, you want them to just go. um, so this is trained. There's lots of variations in between. There's a ton of variations in between that you can work through. Well, if you say, well, my son or daughter are not verbal, how can they ever be trained? They can be. Um, Pictures and PECs are a great way, or a device. is a great way to fade that verbal, right? So once you ask them and you say, do you have to go? And then they go with you because they do have to go. So what you would do is you would take a potty picture and you would put it around the house. And then when you were asking them, do you have to go? You would give them the picture. And then they would take the picture into the bathroom. And then you drop the verbal and you just give them the picture with the hopes that they would just bring the picture to you, if that makes sense. And again, I'm going through this fast because it will take, to get to that point, it could take 6 months, right? And don't give up. That's my thing. Do not give up. Because even a little bit of progress is progress, right? Um, if you had a child or an individual who wouldn't sit at all and it took a month to get them to sit 5 minutes, that's a win. And you should celebrate that win with them. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to back up because I was going fast because I thought I had so much to say. So now I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper about some things. So, about pooping, okay? So, if they're pee conditioned first and they won't poop, a lot of kids go away to poop, right? Like they hide, you know their spot, you know when it's coming. Um, so, if they're in underwear every time during the day, but they won't poop in the diaper because they feel like they need that comfort and that security to poop in the diaper. You can write a social story that says, I pee in the toilet. Um, I don't like pooping in the toilet. I can ask for a diaper right now. And so I've taught a lot of kids to ask for a diaper. You put the diaper on them and they go into the bathroom, give them their privacy, and they poop just in the bathroom, in the diaper, in the bathroom. Okay. And then you take it off, dump it. Once they're in the routine of that, then you have them sit on the toilet in the diaper. Okay. It's just a progression. You're just doing slow and steady um, chaining, getting closer and closer and closer. Um, and my mentor told me this once, and I didn't believe her, but then I've actually done it with a couple of kids, is once they're on the toilet, my experience is once you get them to ask for the diaper and you get them on the toilet, that goes pretty quickly that they'll poop, right? But she, and I've had to do it with two kids, she started cutting holes in the diaper to get them, more desensitized to the air. Um, and it worked. So there's lots of different ways to think out of the box um, about peeing and pooping both. Um, you know, social stories are great. Visuals are a must for kids to understand it, and just patience and consistency in meeting them where they are. Um, there's also, so some kids who poop, especially the ones who don't empty all the way, like digest and empty all the way, they may have to sit a little bit longer. Um, there's been a couple of kids we've done 15 minutes for the pooping, and they were allowed like to watch something on the iPad just because that relaxed them and they were able to go and empty. But again, that's like a case by case basis. That's definitely not where you start, because I've also had other kids, they say that they have to go to the bathroom because they want the iPad. So you kind of got to be very careful about what you're doing. Um, so now I think I can open it up to questions.
We had a question
Yep.
online here. Let me go back. Okay, somebody said, what do I do if my child seems scared to sit on the potty? They scream in terror when we try.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you need to neutralize. That's very, very common. They're probably not ready, just to be honest. And you need to kind of neutralize it. So my question back to you would be, is it, is your potty secure? Are their feet grounded? Are they holding on? That kind of stuff. Um, the other thing that you can do is with the toilet down, you can sit on it and have them sit on your lap, just so they know that this isn't a bad thing. Um, But that's where I would start. I hope that was helpful. Um, but the fact of the matter is they may just not be ready if they're really, really terrified that much. So the more they can be in the bathroom with you, the more you can take them into different bathrooms just to neutralize um, the terror of it. And also a social story about everybody does this is also a really good way to do it. Did you have a question? Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
I'm going to give you the mic so everybody online can hear you. So our biggest sort of hurdle right now is
Mm-hmm.
water.
Okay.
My daughter's obsessed with water and she just wants to stick her arms in the toilet and splash.
Okay.
So she's in full-time ABA, working on a lot of water safety in the bin, in the sink, etc.
Yeah.
How can I, just have the water not be a thing in the toilet?
In the toilet?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there are different seats that have bigger access to water than not, honestly. And I would choose one that didn't have very much access to water. How old is she, if you don't mind me asking? 6? Okay. Um, and then also saying, like, when you sit, you get 2 minutes of water play in the sink. So if you take it away, so she loves water, use it to your advantage, right? So use it to your advantage. I'm always about what they're interested in. If you can do it, put parameters around it, but use that for her interest, if that makes sense. Okay. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sit, hands on lap, then water play with bubbles or whatever. You can entice it a little bit more. Okay.
Anything else from in here?
Do you have any tips on teaching them how to wipe themselves?
We didn't even talk about toilet paper, huh? Okay, so that is really, really tricky, right? So you want, so toilet paper. There are some kids who just take piles of toilet paper, right? So those are kids that I remove the toilet paper and you just give it to them, or you have a couple on a roll and that's all that they get, right? Again, remember, you can reinforce for lots of different things, right? So if they're obsessed with toilet paper, maybe the reinforcer is you take 3 squares and then you get your reinforcer. Now, wiping is tricky. Put a glove on, hand over hand it, help them. You can do some chaining. You start it, they finish it, or they start it, you finish it. So chaining is you take, you break down the sequence of any activity. So wiping yourself. You get the toilet paper, you stand up if you need to, and then you wipe 4 times, put it in the, and I'm just making this up, put it in the toilet, right? So you might have them if you're doing backwards chaining, right? You're going to have them do the last step. So you do everything and then they put it in the toilet. If you're doing forward chaining, they do the first step. They get the toilet paper and then you wipe them and put it in the toilet. Okay? So, and once they've mastered that first step, then you go to the second step. Backwards chaining, once they've mastered the last step, you go to the second to last step.
Okay, I wrote another question online is my daughter will use the toilet when she's naked, but as soon as she has underwear or a diaper on, she will just go in her diaper or underwear. Any suggestions outside of what you've already talked about?
Um, my question, and this is, I don't know if you can type back in, but my question would be, um, why? Like, is it because she doesn't like the sensation of it going down her legs, right? So, like when you have underwear on, it goes down your legs, right? And she doesn't like that. So you might want to just try clothes on without underwear because she'll get that same sensation, if that makes sense. Without talking more in depth, that would be kind of my first um, suggestion regarding that, because you have to look at like what she's getting out of it, right? So if she, or, and I don't know her, is it that she just doesn't like clothes on? And so When she pees in her clothes, is that a way to get her clothes off? And again, I don't know. I'm just giving you lots of different scenarios. My first go-to would be put her in a dress with no underwear. And then you're getting, again, that approximation from naked to a dress or just a shirt first and socks. So you're getting closer and closer to her being dressed. Yeah.
So I'm not really sure how to ask this, but
Just ask it. We
okay.
talk pee and poop all the time.
We have the potty with like the stool attached to it,
Mhm.
and there's a little bear on it. So we call it the bear potty. It's a whole thing, and she'll sit on it very briefly.
Okay.
But I know that she doesn't understand what is supposed to happen.
Okay.
She'll kind of look
Okay.
like what's gonna happen? Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? And she wears a pull up now, and she about half the time she can tell me I have a poop,
Oh, good.
and she knows that she needs to be changed, but
Mhm.
half the time just no concept. So
Okay.
d- is there a way, I don't know, a book or a doll or like
Yeah.
this is gonna come out of here, this is what's supposed, this is our end goal?
You're her doll. So take her into the bathroom with you.
Okay.
Listen, mommy's going to pee. You pee in your diaper. Mommy's peeing. So again, when you're changing her, you're wet. Pee goes in the toilet. And again, you're just labeling it. You're just matter of fact. You don't want her to feel bad about it, but you want, like you said, you want her to associate, hey, this goes in here now, right? And so also sitting her for success. So a lot of people have um, success at bath time, like right after bath time or right before bath time. You put them on and they'll go. And once they go the first time, it like clicks, right? For some it doesn't, but for some it does. So if you really don't think that she understands that's what's supposed to happen, then one of two things. You might need to back off or just keep doing that wet and dry and where it goes and taking her to the bathroom with you and letting her see that pee goes in here. Um, when you change her, poop goes in the toilet. Um, and that's where I would start, just that association, because you're absolutely right. Some kids are just like, oh, well, okay, this is fun. I'm sitting, and they really don't know that that's where it needs to be.
Okay, so I'm first going to, we have a follow up from the last
Yeah,
question, and
yeah.
then there's another question after that. So her follow up was, she said, we don't know. She has no issue sitting in her poopy diaper. We've tried commando and she will cry for pee, but then not care. She doesn't care if she poops in her pants if she's not wearing underwear. She's okay with clothes on.
Okay, so it's just the poop. I'm confused.
Jacqueline, if you want to provide just like a little bit of clarification, that would be helpful. And I will come back to you, I promise. So let me go to this other
And we can
question
chat
here.
via email too if it's
Yeah.
real intense after this.
Okay, so this other question here is my son is extremely sensitive to letting anyone touch his private parts, even himself. He is asking to use the toilet. However, he doesn't want to touch himself to aim even when sitting. Any suggestions?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So get the little thing that has the cup on it. Let's see. You may already have it, but the one that has the cup um, is a good one. The other thing you can do, so let's see. This one's a real, Zach, it's not working. It's facing me. This one's a really good one because see the cup, so uh, his penis doesn't really have to be down because it goes. Um, or this one. The other thing is, and this is a really good thing, is to close their legs. I know that sounds weird, but like even if you have toilet paper, you push his penis down, close his legs. And he can do that even with toilet paper, even if he doesn't want to touch himself. The key is to push it down and close the legs. Things I talk about.
Okay, see. Jacqueline said she will cry if she pees and gets it on her pants because she's commando, but then she will go back to playing. She will poop in her pants commando and not say anything. Essentially, she's not bothered by the pee or poop against her skin.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So, so many questions. You know what? Give her my email and we'll chat because I have a lot of a lot of questions. But we can figure it out. Did you have another question?
So I've heard of like, sorry, the potty party.
Yeah.
Is that sort of like the boot camp, like all weekend thing?
Okay. So, a potty party, that is great. Okay. So, very nice. So some kids are attached to their diapers, right? And they just love it, and they just love their pull-ups, and they love everything. So sometimes what I've done is I've done like a countdown. So if your box of pull-ups is almost done, especially if they're 6 or 7 or 8, you can say, "Oh, they don't make the next size. You've got 2 more, and then we have to go to the potty." And so you kind of count it down. And then you do make it a party. Oh, this is so exciting. We're going to do it. We're going to, and if they can understand that, that's a great way to go. People do that. I know with my daughter, the pacifier, and so we mailed it to somebody who needed it. P.S. in the drawer. But yes, that's a great question. And you could have a potty party, you know, and celebrate when they're sitting. If they hadn't sat for the person whose son is terrified of the potty, celebrate the first time he sits, even if it's for 30 seconds. You know, yeah, and tell him, you did such a good job. It's okay. We're all done. And so you show them that it's okay. Um, the weekend thing again. If they don't need the repetition and they're really close, the weekend is a good thing. It is, because you're doing it all day every day. And if they need to not have clothes on, or if they just need to not have clothes on waist down, it is. But you do 100% of the time, that's all you do. And if you have other family members, I'd send them away, because that is what you're doing. Does that make sense?
We have another question online here. Let me find it. Okay. Our son currently doesn't have one solid bowel movement. He continuously pushes throughout the day. Even after changing him, he immediately starts to push. He's 4 and has been this way since birth. He's also comfortable sitting in a poopy diaper. He hides when going in another room or out of sight. It's been hard for us to even know if he's ready or not.
Yeah.
Are those any signs of readiness? We're struggling when to start.
Yeah. Um, if it sounds like he's not emptying completely, right? So he's not um, able to empty completely. He'll push, get a little bit, he feels better, and then he's not um, totally emptying his intestines. So 2 things. I would go to the doctor because you want to make sure that there's nothing going on. Is he a little constipated? Is he not? Does he empty fast? Does he empty slow? So check in with a GI doctor, especially if he's been this way since birth, and you may have already done that. That's where I would start. If everything's okay, then he might be one that, if he's willing to sit, do the tracking. So the first time that he goes or he's pushing, he sits there, and he may sit for 15 minutes with something very, 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 very motivating with him. That might be a way to start as well. But I definitely would check with the medical. Remember the medical stuff first.
Okay. Anybody else in person?
Thank you,
We
guys.
good? Okay.
Good
If anybody
questions. Great
has any
questions.
more questions online, feel free to ask them kind of while I'm wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I know we are at 7 o'clock, so I just want to be mindful of everyone's time and your time, Christy.
Did you put my email in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So everybody has your email, and I did
Awesome.
follow up with the person who had asked that question as well.
Okay, great.
All right, so let me get just a few things before we wrap up here. Okay. And this will be emailed out to everybody, a copy of the presentation. So you'll have this list of resources as well, and everything that Christy talked about today, as well as her contact information. So I just want to thank Christy for taking the time to present on this topic today. I know there was a lot that was covered. So please reach out if you have any more questions. Again, you're going to get a follow-up email kind of with everything from today's training. And there's also going to be a link to our presentation and event survey. So if you could just take a second to fill that out, we would really appreciate that. That helps me in the planning of any future trainings events. If you're looking for something kind of specific for young kids or like a part 2 sort of this training, please let us know in the comments there. And then I just also wanted to note that we have a presentation 1 week from today on guardianship. Judge Dunn and Magistrate Hathcock from Medina County Probate Court will be here, or you can join us virtually. So again, that's next Wednesday, June 18th from 6 to 7. And I think that is all we have for you. So thank you everyone for joining us. Big thank you to Christy again, and enjoy your evening.